welcome to our Careers Month edition of Find Your Future. At Ryan, exploring careers and pathways for our students is an important focus all year round. In previous years, we would always celebrate National Careers Week in the middle of May, but last year I changed that concept to May being Careers Month, so we had even more time to provide opportunities for our students. This year's Careers Month is bigger and better than ever before. Now, on to our guest speaker for today. I would like to introduce Trent Engle, who is the RTO Vet and Pathways Manager at Townsville Catholic Education. Welcome, Trent.
Thanks, Nicole.
Now, Trent, we might start with a little bit of getting to know you. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role, and then we might move on a little bit to your career history.
Sure. So, I'm the RTO Vet and Pathways Manager, as you mentioned. So work at Townsville Catholic Education, which is the head office for all the 30 Catholic schools now. In that role, there are sort of two key parts to the role. One is managing the Registered Training Organisation, or the RTO. So that's around partnering with all of our schools to offer vet qualifications to our students in our school. So we have about 600 students on our RTO enrolments. And the second part of my role is supporting and advising secondary Catholic schools on matters relating to vet, work experience, school-based apprenticeships and traineeships, career education and career development. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's lots of parts to it, but that's, I guess, a good summary in the two parts.
And I can jump in to say that obviously I've worked with you, Trent, for this is my 6th year now as careers advisor, and you are a wealth of knowledge and a great person to work with, just to tap into all your knowledge and your skills and to ask questions of, and just, general support all year round. All year round you're helping us.
Thanks.
What about your career history? Take us through a little bit of from when you first finished school to where you are now. What has that history looked like for you?
Yeah, well, look, I wouldn't say back when I was at school, I'd think I'd be doing what I'm doing, and nothing like it, to be honest. Well, if I go back to the beginning when I was at school, I, believe it or not, used to really like, at home, I'd spend time building things with timber. So we had a little back shed and I'd do that type of thing. And my uncle was a plumber, and he said, maybe you'd like to be a cabinet maker. I've got a mate that owns a cabinet making business. Why don't you do some work experience there? So I did that. Out of that, I got a part-time job. I mean, it sort of turned real fast when I realised I'm only really young. I'm in year 10 and I'm sweeping the floors and doing really basic things. So, I moved away from that. And then when I got up to later in high school, I actually really enjoyed hospitality, cookery, etc. So I was doing hospitality at the time. I did some work experience at an RSL club, and I got a job there out of my work experience. So I did that in year 11 and 12, and then I really liked it. I liked the social aspect of it and the practical aspect of it. So I ended up after school doing a diploma in hospitality management for 2 years, and after that I went and worked on, I think the main idea behind that was I really wanted to work. I had some goals to work at a ski resort on an island and then maybe a cruise ship, I think, at the time. I only did one. I only did the island. And then I did that for a bit, and then I thought, I don't really like the hours. It's probably not, moving forward, looking ahead. As much as I'd love to get into management, I thought, hours are not for me. So then I became a teacher. I thought, well, I'll teach what I love. So I did uni, still worked in hospitality when I was studying my teaching degree in Coffs Harbour in New South Wales. And then I ended up getting a job here at Ryan as a teacher. Initially, I did a phone conversation with the principal. It wasn't even an interview. I just did the chat, and she said, "Do you want the job?" And I said, "Okay." So I packed up my car and I moved up here, not knowing what it was like, never been here before. Whatever I had, I brought it up, and I lived in Aquarius on the Strand for a little bit, and then I became head of department and worked here for 14 years, and then I moved over to Townsville Catholic Education. I've been there for 8 years now. Yeah.
So you've had a very, varied career there and lots of different experiences. And I suppose what we highlight with every guest speaker who we have on this podcast is where we start is not where we end when we're having this interview. It won't be where we end at the end of our career as well. And it is about that growth and development in terms of getting to know who we are as people. And I just realised Malcolm, who's always in the room with us, doing this wonderful podcast with me and being the expert of all things technical, I don't think I've ever asked you where you started off.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, my story goes a long way back. Getting old now. I will give a little bit. So I grew up with a love of the ocean and a love of fishing, and obviously still do have that. So my goal through high school was always marine biology. And back then there were really only two universities that did marine biology, and there was one at Warrnambool and one here at JCU. And I was doing my high school back in Victoria and decided that JCU was the best place. So, yeah, I came all the way up to JCU to do marine biology, did my honours in marine biology as well, and was about to do a PhD and realised just how difficult it was to have a career in that area. I wasn't that interested in fighting for government funding to be able to do research as much as I loved research. So Tanya, my now wife, who had also done the same course, we both decided to head down the teaching path. And a little bit like what you said, Trent, it was about teaching what we love, which is really interesting because teaching wasn't really something I'd thought of, but it is a way to put your passion into practice.
It's funny when I sit here with the both of you and obviously with past guests, I've talked about the fact that I actually started in a commerce economics degree when I first left school because it was about what I'd done well. I'd enjoyed those subjects, and then got partway through it and decided that wasn't for me, moved to social work, had many, many years as a social worker, and then I've gone back to get my master's in teaching in the last few years. It's the hardest point to get across to students, isn't it? That there is no right or wrong. There is no, this decision now is what it is for forever. That, trying to get that across to them, that it's about which is that first one you want to explore, and who knows what will happen from there. You will grow and develop as a person. That pathway will grow and develop with you. And it's okay. It will all work out in the end. You don't have to probably stress as much about it as what they do. It's a hard point to get across to young people, isn't it, that we change.
Yeah, but I do think that we're becoming more used to the concept of throughout our life we will hold more than one job. 50 years ago it was the idea that you went into one job and that's what you did for the rest of your life. And Nicole, you've probably got better stats on this now, but the average person now goes through many jobs throughout their life. And
absolutely. So
we're probably getting a little bit more used to that now.
And I think too that we are getting better and better with change and understanding that change does not mean like it sometimes did back in the past, that it was a failure or you had done something wrong or you had made a wrong decision. It's not about that. It's actually the opposite. It's about growth and development.
Yeah, and it shows how skills that you learn along the way are probably more important than the knowledge you gain along the way. Those skills can be applied in some very varied positions and can lead people down, as with you, Trent, down a very different pathway to where you started.
Yeah, it's those transferable skills, I think, that you might learn initially that might make you pivot around different jobs across your lifespan, I guess. So.
Definitely. And I think the linking back to, for both of you, you've got some linking back to some of those beginnings with what you do now. And I'm the same, even though I started in economics, commerce and moved away from that, I'm now an economics teacher because I loved the economics. It was the commerce that I was like, I think I'm done there. Yeah. But to circle back to economics, because that love has actually probably always stayed there in the background. So it's interesting, the links that occur from that past into the future.
Yeah.
Trent, you talked about work experience, and obviously I did work experience as well in grade 11. I went out and thought I was going to be a lawyer at that point in my life and did work experience and realised I would not be doing that, which was really helpful.
Yeah, that's success, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say to students, it's either going to cement an idea, which is great and helpful, or it's going to take an idea off the table, which is great and helpful.
Absolutely.
How important do you think work experience is for young people in just trying out some of those ideas that they've got?
Well, I think it's the most important. I think if you don't try before you buy, if you go to university, you don't do a 4-year degree and then get to the end of it and start your work then and then realise, I don't even like this work. It's been a waste of my time, a waste of my money, or likewise with doing an apprenticeship or something like that. So I think work experience is the key, and I think, all students should give it a go. Come and see you, Nicole.
Absolutely.
And work out a way to do it. And it's, you do it on the holidays, don't you? So, yeah.
We do, and we have some flexibility during term time as well, definitely. But I think it's really important for students and their families to understand that even if the response is, I really didn't like that, that is not what I thought it would be, that is so helpful to them, because in a school setting, we can only show them so much of a reality of a profession or an industry, and they gain a lot from being, surrounded by that, a work experience situation.
Yeah, it's seeing what the job is, and it's also talking to the people that do the job. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Malcolm, did you do any work experience when you were at school?
Yeah, I sure did. So for us, it was back in the time where we had a blocked work experience. I think it was through, I can't remember whether it was year 11 or year 12, but it was a blocked work experience where sort of everybody went off and did that work experience at the same time. And my work experience was at Snobs Creek Fish Hatchery, which was a Murray cod and trout fish hatchery in Victoria, and absolutely thoroughly enjoyed my week there. It was really good. Probably a lot more of the physical type labour of what they did there in terms of spawning fish as opposed to the science, but yeah, it was fantastic.
That sounds really, really interesting. Trent, with your current role, obviously you assist, as you said, schools in that careers and vet space immensely. Would you say that probably the biggest area that's seen development and growth and where you have helped the most is in that increase in certificate courses and that option and those pathways, or are there some other areas as well? Yeah,
I think that's the main thing. So it's around just valuing vet, not seeing, I think a lot of people still see university as the main pathway where the main careers are and the main income, I guess, the highest thing. I mean, you look at tradies now, particularly, I was going to talk about that later, particularly around the construction industry, how it's booming up here and will be into the future. There are a lot of, good paid jobs, well-paid jobs, probably much higher than university graduates too. So, I think that's changing. I think the attitudes towards vet is changing, but I still think we've got a long way to go with that. At Ryan, you're lucky you're a big school with lots of great opportunities for students that want to go to university and students that want to go on a vet pathway, apprenticeship pathway, an employment pathway as well. So that's the beauty of a big school with options. So that I think that's really good. You can do that and cater to the needs of all students. Plus, there's all those other external things that students can do too, outside of school, online and things like that contribute towards their senior schooling as well. So, I think the attitude towards vet has changed a bit. Yeah. But also careers as well. I think more students now value those conversations around because there's lots of careers that we haven't thought about, right, that are coming through in the future. And I've got a few here that I had a look at earlier, green energy, for example, hydrogen, things like that, technology and AI, as you know, that'll be booming. It is now and into the future too. So jobs in that space, healthcare and social assistance, as ageing population, all those types of things, mental health and wellbeing, increase in that, and particularly in North Queensland, as I mentioned, construction. So there's lots of big projects underway and into the future that will create lots of jobs, and there's lots of money, funding coming in for that as well. Yeah.
One area I think I've seen from, obviously, not that I've had a whole career in this area, but thinking from a student to now, is I think just that space that we give students to explore and so many opportunities now to explore. Whereas when I think back to school, and again, I've mentioned this in past podcasts, I don't remember a careers advisor other than I think we had a teacher who had it as a little side gig. Might have had a few hours for that a week. I don't remember that teacher ever talking to the cohort. I don't remember ever there being events or opportunities or activities for us to help explore our thoughts and our decisions. I think it was sort of there's this person who you could go to, but I think probably none of us ever did. So, just from being a student to now where I'm at and the position I'm in, I think that's a big area where it's just that opportunity to explore, opportunity to have someone to talk to and more people to talk to that are experts in this area and are keeping up with the changes, the trends and all those sort of things is a big change.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. In Townsville Catholic Education, we want to make sure that all students have access to career development and career education. So the fact that all of our schools do have a qualified career development practitioner like yourself, I think, yes, has evolved over time, which is really good. But also, yes, those opportunities that people like yourself and people like the vet middle leader in the school and other people in the school provide, like whether it's going to JCU as a day, their open day, or whether it's going to the TAFE, or whether it's going and looking at industries, catching a bus, doing all those types of things. I think there's more and more of that now, more opportunities to do those things. So probably that's what's changed a bit over time.
And surely just the number and variety of certificates that are offered, particularly in school, vet must have boomed recently.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of different opportunities these days compared to the past. I know when I went to school, which was quite a while ago now, probably, I don't know, more than 20 years, 20-something, 25 years ago probably, I don't even think we could go to TAFE. Whereas students these days, students can go to TAFE on a Wednesday and do other courses as well that they can't access at school that lead into a pathway to something else. So, yeah, definitely that's increased a lot. And they're usually funded courses too, so they're free.
Yeah, I was going to say, Trent, what do you think the big advantage of doing those courses while still going through grade 11 and 12?
Yeah, well, I think they provide a pathway, like work experience, I guess. They give you the opportunity to explore a particular area you might be interested in. And again, you might say, I've done a Cert 1 in construction, but no, it's not really for me. So I'll try something else. So I think that's the benefit of that. And then combined with that work experience. But being funded as well. I think sometimes there's that, if you have to, some vet quals cost thousands of dollars. So the fact that the Queensland government funds most of them is really important and helpful to make sure everyone gets access to those quals.
I think it's great too that it keeps both doors open, doesn't it? It's about, I can keep the school door open and keep, tracking through there, but this pathway that I'm really interested in, I'm beginning that as well. And both of them are happening at the same time. And I think that's a good win-win rather than what sometimes used to happen, back a few decades ago. I've got to make a decision here. Which one is it? I can't have both. And, obviously there would have been times where students stayed back in the day in a school environment and that wasn't a very good decision for them, or maybe they made a very quick snap decision and left school and went down another pathway, and that ended up not being, quite the match for them either.
And, you hear, I hear about my parents talking about how they were, when they went to school, clear pathways aside, academic or non-academic. The fact that, students can choose a bit of a blend now, a more balanced approach where they can do academic and still have that option to go to university if they want to by the end of year 12, or and then they can also do a vet qual and they could go that way if they wanted as well. So
Definitely.
And they can put energy into to something that actually means something to them, and still finish high school with a QCE, still be able to get their certificate and but focus on something that is a bit more meaningful.
And all of that really is in keeping with that theme of we change and grow and develop as we get older. So we do want to keep as many of those doors open as possible for when that change might occur. Trent, I just want to go back to a little point you made a few minutes ago on the TCE, careers advisors and practitioners. Maybe you could give a little bit of insight to people that there is, those people do hold qualifications and there is definitely expertise sitting in those positions.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be a registered career development practitioner, you need to hold a graduate certificate in career development. So that's a 4-unit course, postgraduate level. So we have in the past sponsored our career development practitioners to do that qualification, and most of them do hold it, as you do, Nicole.
Yes. Yep.
And I think that's really important because that qualification they've gained helps them to provide that advice, but also know about all the resources available to help them provide that advice and where to point students in the right direction if they need extra assistance and that type of thing. So, it's really important that our people advising students have those quals and that experience to be able to provide that good advice.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's really important, particularly students but their families to understand that when they come and have a chat, it's not just a casual conversation or things like that. There is a process, a professional process going on there, based on a qualification and based on what you've learned of how those interactions need to be, and also the other side of it based on keeping up to date with many, many changes that are happening in the careers and vet space. And as we know, they occur very, very quickly and occur quite regularly, and you're needing to keep on top of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start talking about some professions and industries. Across your time and obviously in your position, what do you think are some of those professions or industries where we're seeing some major progress at the moment? You touched earlier on the construction area.
Yeah, and probably some of the other things I said earlier too. So that hydrogen, that green energy stuff, like I said, the technology, the AI, that's where the jobs are going to be, right? And like I mentioned, healthcare, social assistance because of ageing, well-being, etc. So I think they're the main ones. But I mentioned construction, and there's some really big projects coming up in Townsville that there will be huge amounts of jobs and funding. So, there's the Copper String project between here and Mount Isa. That's $2.4 billion worth of funding, with looking at thousands of jobs there. And into the future, there's things like, the Townsville University Hospital expansion, an extra 450 jobs into the future, but 1,000 construction jobs just to do the expansion. There's a Quartz campus coming up to 1.5 to 2 billion, and that's going to create 1,200 jobs. So there's lots of things in North Queensland that are happening that will create opportunities for students in that space too.
And I think that,
Trent, I was just going to say some of the things you mentioned in there too, like your AI, your health, a lot of those sort of areas most people would probably associate with a university degree to get involved with. But you're showing here that that's not necessarily the case. There are other pathways into those careers. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, it's not always required that you have a university degree. TAFE studies can provide a lot of that. There's diploma level qualifications in that, and which are quite practical too, probably more practical than university, to provide the students with those skills they need for meaningful employment. So most definitely, probably a lot of those jobs, particularly around construction, they're not university qualifications. Majority would be vet qualifications.
Yeah, and health here at Ryan has traditionally been a very big area for our students to move into.
Absolutely.
I think it's part of our service aspect of our school motto is, the kids like to go into that area of health.
Yeah,
I think that's been definitely in the 5 years previous to this one that I've been in my position. Health has always been number one, and usually closely followed by engineering. They're probably the two top that have remained pretty stable over the last 5 years at least.
And if you look at statistics, about 25% of future jobs are in health. So that's good. It's good that the students are aligning with the industry need too. Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we tell them that information as well, that it's not just about, obviously we want them to be looking at their passion and their interest areas and their strength areas most definitely, but also for them to have that knowledge of the growth areas so that they can match those two huge parts of information together to make their decisions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that was kind of what my downfall was, I guess, was I took my interest and tried to follow that through and make it a career. But back when I was at high school, my other little skill and little niche area was always technology. I loved computers, and everyone said to me, "Oh, that's what you should be doing. You should be going down the pathway of IT." And I'm like, yeah, but everyone's going down the pathway of IT. Give it 3 or 4 years, and we're going to have an explosion of people in IT. But IT kind of grew and it took off at the same time, and everyone got taken up. So maybe that should have been what I did instead of marine biology.
But I think I would say that is a conversation I have with a lot of students actually, and you touched on it, Malcolm, that idea of what is a hobby, what's an interest area, which ones of those cross over and become a career pathway, which ones actually should just stay and be that hobby or that interest on the side. And I think that's actually a bigger decision that students have to make than what we probably realise and what they probably realise. And again, that's why those conversations, resources, activities, events, work experience can really help, particularly in that area.
Yeah, I think it's everybody's dream, isn't it, that their career is, something that they enjoy doing. sometimes it can be their hobby, but it's very difficult to have a hobby follow through into a career pathway.
So
But you want to do what you love. Hey?
You want to do what you love.
Absolutely.
That's right.
If you're working for however many years, you want to make sure that you
gotta
like
enjoy
the
it.
work you do. Hey, but that might be why we change jobs over time.
Absolutely.
You know, so yeah, I think that's important too.
So Trent, tell me, if you were a SEP planner for our Year 10s this year and a student came to you and was really quite indecisive, really didn't have a clear pathway, which, let's be honest, at Year 10 we don't expect them to have that. I think they sometimes put, again, that pressure on themselves. We just want them to keep as many doors open as possible because we do understand their age and the decisions they're trying to make. What sort of advice would you give a Year 10 student at SEP Plan?
Plenty of advice. I think, they need to explore the possibilities. So they need to have an open mind. They need to research jobs and industries, talk with people from particular industries they're interested in, family members even. You might have an uncle that's something that you might be interested in, so have a chat to them about that. Friends, family friends, all those types of people, make sure you talk to them. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, I think, because if you're only in Year 10, you're young, you're still very young, you don't know what you want to do necessarily. I know some students do. They've got a very clear pathway that they want to take, but don't put that pressure on. Things will change, as we talked about. So you might choose things now in SEP planning and then halfway through you might change your mind. So I guess it's about not pigeonholing yourself and making sure that the subjects you choose, yes, interest you, but they're also not too narrow, and you keep those opportunities open for you. I think, I've mentioned understand things will change over time, but working backwards. So I think looking at your career aspirations, looking at what qualifications are required for that, if any, subject prerequisites to get into the qualification, and then choosing the subjects to get into that qualification, the right ones. Being realistic too, though, I think that's really important. So, for example, if you're not so good at maths, maybe, and physics maybe, and science, maybe don't choose to be an engineer. You need to be really realistic with yourself, and I think parents need to be realistic with their children as well, because, again, we've talked about doing something that you love and you're good at. So that's really important, but also being realistic.
Is that something, Nicole, you help out with in particular? Because
definitely.
I know as a teacher we see, a lot of very high aspirations, and trying to keep things real for a student is, as you say, it's very important. So you would help out it.
Yeah, definitely. There's some of the more difficult conversations, obviously, because you're trying to get a really nice balance too of not deflating that student completely, but needing to be realistic. But also then there's this other part of going, but you know what, I don't know actually, because we know that things can change a lot across a career. I don't know where you'll be at in 10 years' time, where that door might be open to you, sort of thing, depending on what you've done and how you've developed and changed. So yeah, it's tricky because
what's that thing we see on the retirement ads, past performance is not a good indicator of future performance. So
that's right. So you've always, I never say it's a never. What I sometimes might need to say is that may not be a pathway straight out of school based on, if I have a student who's, coming to me at the beginning of Year 12 and telling me it's medicine, but they have not chosen the prerequisites. The ATAR is, at a 70 prediction or something like that, which we know they're off the mark in some certain areas that are very crucial for that pathway straight out of school. Obviously you need to be honest and you need to be realistic with them on that. But again, not saying never, because you don't know where they may be in a period of time in the future and what opportunities might be there for them.
Yeah, and that was my last point I was going to say, is believing in yourself too, because sometimes we doubt ourselves. So as much as, yes, you need to be realistic, but also you need to believe in yourself. If I really want to do this, I'm going to try my best and see if I can. But, that's probably my advice.
Thank you for that. What about, and I didn't, I'm going to throw you a new question here. What about if it was someone like halfway through Year 12 and still very stuck and very, and I suppose I'll preface this a little bit. sometimes when students do hit year 12, there will be a lot of, when I do the careers interviews with them, I don't know. And I've spoken to parents a lot over years to say push that a little bit, because I think sometimes when people are a little bit confused, a little bit, unsure, doubting themselves may be a little bit the easiest thing to say is I don't know. But you push them a little bit and you start getting, there is a plan there. I actually think there's very few students each year where there's no plan at all. I think sometimes it's about asking the right questions to get that plan to come out and for them to be able to articulate.
Thinking a bit deeper.
Yeah, exactly.
The I don't know is the easy answer.
It is the easy answer, absolutely. But say you did have a student who was halfway through year 12 and they were really, really quite conflicted and really didn't have a plan in place. What would be your advice to them?
I think it's getting to the point where it's getting close. They need to make some decisions, right? But I think still, like I said earlier, I think it's then going back to the drawing board and you'd be able to provide them with some advice around, where can I go to sort of explore online even? There are some quizzes there to go, what are my actual things I'm good at, interested in, all those things, and sort of test that out and then come back with some results there to have another look like you did in year 10 to re-explore those options. But again, maybe work experience. Look at that again on the holidays. Think of some particular areas, but delving deeper, like you said, and work experience, conversations with people again, going and visiting industries, researching, all those types of things. I guess the other option is just putting some preferences down, whether it be university or whether it be vet, just putting some things in so you've got them there, leaving room to change. Otherwise, I don't know whether I should be saying this, but you might need another year. Like it mightn't be bad to, I shouldn't say gap year, I don't like to say gap year, but I think if you don't know what you want, you don't want to invest in something that you may not want to do. So maybe you need that little bit more time, and it might be, if you've got a part-time job already, doing some more work in year 13 until you work out what it is that you might enjoy as a job, and going from there. So
I find the gap year concept really, really interesting. That I definitely think there is a group of students that they do just need a little bit more time, and as long as they've got I always say to them, as long as you've got a plan, whether it's you're in a current job and you're increasing your hours so that you are out and about, you're mixing with people, you're not sitting on the couch as more the majority than out, doing those sort of things. And that you've got some checkpoints of that year. I always say to them, it's very easy to blink and turn around and you're 23 still on your gap year. So it's about having an amount of time that you allocate, but having checkpoints in there where you're getting back and conversing with yourself about where am I at, what am I doing, what is my plan now, sort of thing. And the other thing I talk to about students too, where they say, I just want to break, Nicole. I plan
that was me.
Yeah,
I'm happy to put my hand up and say I did a gap year after high school, and I think my family was a bit worried about that. The idea that you're going to go out and you're going to start earning money, and you're not going to want to then head off to university. But no, I knew I was going to university, and for me, it was just a mental break. Put a little bit of money aside. I knew I had to do the big move from Victoria to Townsville here, and that was going to take some finances to be able to do that. And I think it was really good for me. It's not for everyone, but for me, it was an excellent thing to do.
And I think sometimes when I know that they probably do, they're saying they need a little bit of a break, I think, again, I try and change that terminology of a gap year, because that implies a certain amount of time. And I find that when I've had alumni come back and have a bit of a chat to me, they've been very thankful that I said to them, maybe you go into uni, say if it's a uni course, maybe you're not going in January, but maybe you're going into the April trimester or something like that, because I think it's about sometimes a break, but not necessarily a whole length of a year. And when I've heard students talk back with me about that, they were like, I'm really thankful that you said that, because I was actually starting to get a bit bored and I knew I needed to do something, and I'm really glad that I didn't think it was going to be this really extensive amount of time, they've wanted to obviously start their pathway a lot sooner. But then there will be students, absolutely, who that whole year is absolutely beneficial and crucial for them moving forward, sort of thing, definitely.
And Malcolm, you mentioned yourself, and I was going to say that around, having that gap year, it can't just be a nothing year. It needs to be, you need to be doing something. You need to have something in mind, and whether it's the year or half a year or whatever. But I think, it is important to be doing something, whether it's earning money or whether you just do some little courses or some micro credentials or things like that to keep you going. Otherwise, you can fall into a trap. Or, yes, like you said, Malcolm, you'll start earning money and you might go, oh, I just like the money. I don't want to go back to being a student now because now I'm not going to be earning the money.
Lucky for me, it wasn't a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important too, that you
Definitely.
maintain that focus, because as everyone probably knows, research shows that if you've got a qualification, you're more likely to have more earning potential, more better opportunities for jobs into the future.
And I always say to students too, it's about always being on a path and working toward, enhancing that path. Where we feel lost and confused and uncomfortable and we don't know what we're doing is where there's no path.
Yep.
But as long as we're on a path, if that path changes 50 times, that's okay. It's about always making sure you're on a path and working toward it. And I think if you're going to take a little break of time, that's the key to that, is making sure.
And don't we, in 2026, don't we prioritise that, building the individual so much more than we used to, putting time and effort into self and bettering yourself. I think that's something we do really well these days, whether it's short courses, whether it's cert courses or just self-learning online. There's so much information available to learn about on, if it's YouTube. There's a lot.
And I think that's probably another big change that we have seen in this careers and vet space is tapping into what, Malcolm, you were just saying about self. And I say again with every student, we're not going to start with the career, we're going to start with you.
Yeah.
You need to get to know yourself a little bit first, what your passion is, what your areas of interest are, what your strengths are.
Yep.
That's where we actually have to start.
Yeah,
first.
when you were talking before about the student who doesn't know what they want to do and they're halfway through grade 12, I would look at that student and say, you have actually made some choices. You're currently enrolled in 4 or 5 senior subjects.
Yeah.
What made you pick those subjects? How are you doing in those subjects? What's your interest lying? What are you doing well in? So I think they probably have already made some choices that may be indicating where they want to go in the future.
I think I really do. After all of these years now, I do think we have a lot of people who it's very easy to say, I don't know. But the reality is actually you do have a plan. You're just struggling a little bit to articulate it. Or maybe it's a bit scary, or maybe you're a bit unsure of what to do and how to do it. But there actually is a plan there when you start digging a little bit under the surface. Trent, I just want to also talk about that idea you've brought up a few times about research. I probably find that is an area that can sometimes be a bit lacking from students, is that they, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm there, our vet program leader is there. We're a resource and we want students to come and talk to us, and we want to help them with that information and things like that. But just even that initial research, I find that sometimes that can take students where they haven't done that initial research, but they start making decisions. And they're deciding that things like, oh, if I want to do a law degree, I have to do legal studies. No. Only if it's a good match for you, know. Do you find that a little bit as well, that initial research can sometimes be a bit lacking, but then there's a lot of assumptions that will tend to get made about certain industries or professions about what would be needed, what would be a prerequisite, what they have to do, often incorrect.
Yeah, and sometimes that stems from other people they're talking to as well. Sometimes they're giving the wrong advice. So, yeah, absolutely. I think looking at, you've got to look in the right spot, right? And that's what you're there for, Nicole, is to help them to find where the information is, because there's a lot out there, and you need to, as we know with AI, it can take you anywhere, and whether it's true or not is another thing. So I think, it's really important that they look at, where are the jobs, and where's it going to take me, and where are those? And, there's things like Jobs and Skills Australia, for example, have a Jobs and Skills Atlas, so you can look up particular opportunities there, where the future jobs are and all those types of things. So I think, that's important too. But your example about legal studies, absolutely. I mean, if you want to be a lawyer, legal studies is good. It gives you some knowledge, I guess, around that industry, but it's not a prerequisite. So it's breaking down those barriers but finding the information and again, going to Nicole and finding out, well, how do I look up what is a prerequisite to get into a law degree at a particular university? That's what you're there for, to help them with that. Yeah.
And I always love the My Future website too. I always think that's a great starting point for a lot of students. Such a wealth of information in that website, all up to date, lots of a variety of different information that they can look at. And I love those career bullseyes where they can look at different industries and just explore all different positions that exist within that industry based on different levels of qualification.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Now, I'm just thinking too that often sometimes in schools you would have seen, Trent, in your position, that we do have so many opportunities, whether it's events or activities, guest speakers in that career space, and then in VET, all of the certificates and the external certificates they can do and all of those sort of things. What do you think there is the best way for students and their families, I suppose, to gain that information and to really understand all that is there for them, particularly in senior, because senior can often look very different to junior school in terms of those opportunities. I suppose so families and students aren't making decisions based on inaccurate information, where they're thinking that things don't exist or those pathways aren't there for them, but they actually are. What do you think the best way is for them to get that information?
Well, I think it's about talking to you, Nicole. I think you're there as a resource. So I think coming to you, I mean, there's a lot out there, as we've already mentioned. There's so much now compared to the past, but I guess it's talking to the right people. So like I said, talking to you, coming to all the things that the school offers. So all those careers, events, nights, days, things like that, your career ed type classes and things that you do. All that, but also, asking the right questions.
It's about, them asking us what is there as well and coming to those events. Yep. And I suppose I was thinking about it like in terms of our school, we've got that wonderful technology centre that's opened in the last couple of years. We do have all of the certificate courses. We do have lots of information sessions for parents and events that they can come along, look at, take tours of the school because these environments are so different to the schools that we went to. Yeah. And those opportunities are just, it's amazing what's out there for students now. But sometimes even when you're in the school environment and a family of the school environment, you just may not know everything that's there unless you're coming along to those events, those information nights, those sessions, anything that our college is offering and all the other schools as well. They're the great things to be making sure you're engaging with so that you are across all the information and you are aware of all of the opportunities that exist so you're not making decisions based on incorrect information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that brings us to the end, Trent. Gee, we've gone through quite a few different avenues today and it's been a really, really great conversation. I want to thank you very much for your time coming over from Townsville Catholic Education. I know you're very, very busy, so I really appreciate the time that you've given us today. And Malcolm, I want to thank you too.
That's right. You
have enhanced our conversation so much today and I appreciate you sharing all of your experiences as well. So this will not be our only podcast during Careers Month. We look forward to one or two more. But thank you, Trent. I really appreciate everything you've shared with us today.
Thanks everyone.